This is a 190 Q&A practice test. Plaintiff attorney Mr. Meyer, capital M-Y-E-R. Defense attorney Ms. period Rios, capital R-I-O-S. And we will start with the plaintiff attorney. Ready? Here we go. Would she have a list of who was working that area at that time? Yes. Okay, and so after the 911 call came in, dispatch notified you directly? Correct. And do you know how much time went by between the time the CHP dispatch received the 911 call and the time she actually did dispatch you? No. Have you ever worked in the or observed in the dispatch department? I have done a sit-along, they call it. Okay, where you sit in there and you observe what's going on? Yes. And is it typically when 911 calls come in, is it very common that they dispatch officers to go to the scene pretty quickly? Yes. All right, under a few minutes? Yes. Okay, and if we had to try and calculate the timing of this case, would it be fair to rely that the dispatch would not have taken more than 2 minutes at least? As to your understanding of the process to dispatch, to my knowledge, yes. To dispatch you? Yes. Have you ever spoken to the dispatcher who dispatched you on this call? No. Do you know who it was? No, I don't. Do you know if it was a man or a woman? I don't. Do you have records there at the CHP that would indicate the time the 911 call came in and the time that you were actually dispatched? They should. What do you call those records? It would be a log, an incident log. Okay, in the incident log, that would show the time that the 911 call came in, correct? It would show the time that the dispatcher started putting it into the system, I believe. Okay, each line has a timestamp. Okay, I get it. Well, first of all, the 911 call itself would have some kind of a date comment on the call itself, would it not? I believe so. Okay, and then once the call comes in, the dispatcher has to actually enter something into the CHP computer to create the first record. Is that the idea? Yes. And then when they create that they're noting when the call came in? Yes. And then there's also a record created as to the time that they actually dispatched you or whoever they were going to dispatch. Is that the idea? Yes. And you don't know how much time that took? I don't. Okay. What do you know is it took? Between the time you were dispatched and your arrival on scene, it took 18 minutes? Yes. Do you look at your watch and you record that and make a note of that so you can put it in the report? No, that number is given to me from dispatch as well. Okay, so what you did was you said, hey, I'm here at the scene, and they note that? Correct. So then you can go back and prepare your records, your report from their entries? Yes. Did you look at the dispatch records as to do that? No. When you put that, you arrived on scene at 13:35. Would you have just called the dispatcher and asked her, hey, what time did I get on scene? Yes, I would have asked for it over the air. Okay, all right, so that 18 minutes, it's a good and reliable amount of time. It's very specific. Yes. Now, in that 18 minutes that it took you between being dispatched and your arrival, do you know what took place at the scene of this accident? No. Have you ever asked anybody, hey, between the time that the accident happened and the time of my arrival, what happened? No. Did you ever ask anybody that question? No. Do you know? Well, strike that. One thing you know is the vehicles were moved in that time period, both of them? Yes. Do you know if any further damage was done to either the bike or the van in that time period? No. That is, between the time of the accident and the time of your arrival? No. Do you know if anyone moved any of the evidence around the scene of the accident during that time period? No. Did you prepare page 5, which is the factual diagram? No. Who prepared page 5? This was Officer Harris. And with regard to page 5, we can see that if we look at the legend, there's a legend that goes along with 5, is there not? Yes. Is the legend on page 7? Yes. Of your report, 7 and 8? Yeah, the first item that we see is that tire mark. We talked about that the last session. Yes. So where it's marked number 1, yes. All right. And the second item, it's that fluid that says a quote, a pool of fluid. Do you see that on page 7? Yes. Is the pool of fluid shown on the pictures? Yes. Is that what you earlier referred to when we discussed photos 7203 and 4 and 7289 and 90? Yes. Now, did you yourself ever see a pool of fluid as opposed to the mark that you see in those pictures? I don't recall. Do you know what I mean by a pool? You've seen at accident scenes where there's like literally it's a pool, it's wet, it's pooled, liquid is pooled. Yes. You don't ever recall seeing that at this accident scene, do you? I can't recall if I did or didn't. Okay, with regard to the photo that we have at 7203 and 4 and 7289 and 90, do you have a memory of seeing the marks that were captured in those images when you were at the scene? Yes. And as you earlier mentioned, you're not sure if those were there before the accident or after the accident, correct? Correct. As we sit here today, do you have any memory of seeing just a wet pool of liquid that was at the scene of this accident? Do you have any memory of that right now? I don't recall. Okay, the third item, if we look at Exhibit 5, and it says that there's a 3 by 5 by 1.8 foot pool of blood. Do you see where that's shown? Yes. Let me see those pictures if I might. Do you have any memory at all of seeing a 3 by 5 by 1.8 pool of blood at the scene of this accident? I remember there being blood on the asphalt. I couldn't testify to the exact measurements of those. Do you have any memory today of there being a 3 by 5 by 1.8 foot pool of blood at the scene? Do you have a memory today of that specific size, or yeah, a pool of blood of that size? Approximately, yes. Okay. If we look at photo 7299, take a look at that. Okay, does that show blood that you attributed to the accident? Yes. And take a look at all the other pictures you have there and see if anyone took a photo of a pool of blood that was 3.5 feet by 1.8 foot pool of blood at the scene of this accident. That's what would be shown in these pictures, what Officer Harris was relating to. What my question was take a look at the pictures, strike that, Exhibits 5, 14, with the exception of the strike that. Exhibit 14 is all the pictures that were taken at the scene of this accident, correct? Correct. And go through Exhibit 14 and see if there's any pictures of a pool of blood 3 feet, 3.5 by 1.8 feet pool of blood. And if what you're showing is what 7299 was to show, let me know that that's what 7299 was to show. All right, other than what's indicated, the blood that's indicated on 7299, was there any other blood at the scene of this accident? There was some blood located on the rear of the van. Okay, but that's all. And would you get the pictures that were on the rear of the van? Yes, all pictures showing blood on the rear of the van. Is there a series of them? There's a few, and then I know there's some more earlier on. Just give me, if you can get me one photo, I don't need to keep repeating. Once I see one picture, I'll be able to kind of get the idea. 7274. Can I take a look at that? Yes, sir. And other than, why don't you circle that, if you would, the blood on 7274. And we have a very short word list. Officer Harris, capital O-F-F-I-C-E-R, new word, capital H-A-R-R-I-S, Officer Harris. And that is it for the word list, and that will conclude our 190 Q&A practice test.